to use that in SQL. So without any delays, let's go ahead and look at our outline and we're going to jump right in. So last week we did the having clause and we used alias when we were using that having clause, but today we're going to go into a deeper dive and understand when to use it, how to use it, and where else you can use it. So today, again, what we're going to do, we're going to create two different type of aliases, one for the columns, one for the table, and we're going to go through that and show you how to do that. And without any delays, let's go to W3Schools, and I already have it. There we go. I already have it up. So you'll go to w3school.com, SQL, tutorials, SQL. So what does W3School say about aliases? Basically what it says is how you can use an alias again for tables or columns, and it's good to provide like a temporary name. So just because you get like, this is probably a little more than what we want to go into, but just to give a detailed description of what we're trying to do with the alias. Now, alias, if you're creating a table and the table has, let's say for instance, customer ID. If you give customer ID an alias, that does not mean customer ID name has changed. It's just for the output of the query that you're running. So let's look at some more things that W3School says. So aliases are often used to make column names more readable. Aliases only exist for the duration of that query again. So once when that output is done, you will not see the alias again. You have to recreate it if you want it. An alias only exists for the duration of the query. Aliases are created with the keyword as. This is very important. This doesn't always apply to every alias that you use, but when you're using it in the select statement, that's what it applies to. Okay, so here's the syntax when you're doing an alias for a column. So you'll have the select statement, your column name, and then you'll have your as, and then you'll have your alias name. So whatever it may be, and then after that, you just follow it through. And you can give more than one column an alias. You can get every single one of your columns an alias. That might be overkill, but let's say for instance you have 50 columns, you're going to be giving alias for a long time, but it is possible. And I'll give a demonstration where you have two different columns and how to use the alias. And here is another way you can use alias for a table name this time. And you don't always have to use as when you're doing a table name. And I'll give you a demonstration of that. That mainly comes into play when we're doing joins. We haven't done any joins yet, but that tutorial is coming up very soon. And I'll show you. That's mainly what I use at alias, is when I'm doing joins. Okay, so let's look at the customer table. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different columns here. And you can, like right here, you have customer ID, customer name. You can just put an alias to whatever you want. And then you have your orders table here. So let's go ahead and jump into some exercise. And again, same thing with the orders table. You can instead of order ID, you can change to whatever you want, depending on what the output needs to look like, and it also depends on making it more readable. That's the main point of an alias, is making it more readable and presenting the output in a certain way. Okay, so let's scroll down here. Let's go look at this example and see how they went ahead and used the alias. So I'm gonna do a little cleaning up. Just everything's fine here. I just like seeing, again, I spoke about this in the past videos. I like seeing things a certain way. So this is a perfect example. We have two different columns here, customer ID and customer name. And we see we have an alias for this. We have an alias for this. And if we run that, here it is. So ID, instead of customer ID, you see that it shows ID. And customer name comes up as customer. So that's a good example here. So let's go back. And then let's look at the note here. The following SQL statement creates two aliases, one for the customer name column and one for the contact name column. Note, it requires double quote marks or square bracket if an alias name contains space. So give me 1 second here. Excuse me, sorry about that, guys. A little parch. Okay, so here the main reason why we use a bracket is because if we look at here, this alias, there's no space, but this one we want to have a space. So let's try this out and see how it looks. Again, just for aesthetic purposes, I'm going to bring this down here just so I can read it better. And I do this mainly, like usually what I'll do, like something like this, just so I can clearly and visibly see that there's two different columns in here. Because when you start running a bunch of queries and you have to go back and diagnose where the issue is, it's better to read it when you start doing indentation, but you don't have to. It's just, again, it's preference. So, okay, customer and contact person. If you notice here, these brackets do not show on the output. So if you wanted to have a space, you can do that. So that was example. Okay, the following statement creates an alias name address that combines 4 columns: address, postal code, city, and state. So let's try this one. This is another perfect example, again, where you can use an alias. And you know what? Let me show you how it would look without an alias. Okay, so let me run that. So you see customer name, there's no alias here, and then address. So let's take the alias off and see how it looks. So you see how it comes out? It's like, what does this mean? We don't know. So that's, again, oops. And you can do this here, because fix this right here. Okay, so customer physical address, customer name. Oops. Okay, name of customer. Okay, so right here we have name of customer, customer physical address. Again, right here we use the bracket because we have spaces. Use the bracket because we have spaces. So let's go to the next one. I believe the next one should be, okay. Now there is a difference, like when you're combining columns, excuse me, in MySQL, you have to use a concat. And then in Oracle, you just have to use your open paren and close paren. Now, this might be, I'm just thinking here. Yeah, we'll do this. This doesn't have to do for join. Usually, again, well, it does have to do a join, so excuse me. Usually, when I name tables, when I name tables is when I'm doing a join. So right here, this is a join. And again, we'll get into more details about this later on. So let's run this. So you have order ID, which is from the order table, and your order date from the order table again, and the customer name, which is coming from the customer table. And then this helps you when you do it this way. If you notice, the O doesn't appear down here. Basically, this helps you, like if you're diagnosing some kind of issues that's going on with the query, you want to come back and like, man, this order ID, where did this come from again? Oh, the O up here different identifies where this has come from. So this is saying, hey, this order ID is coming from orders table. If you didn't do it this way, let me show you how it looked like. And again, this might be a little too much right now because we didn't go over joins. So what we would have to do, we would have to physically name the tables here. And then instead of C, it will be customers. Equals orders. Let me change this. Okay, so you see same results. Now, let's say, for instance, I didn't do all this naming convention. Watch this. Customer name. You're going to see a mistake that happens here. You'll get an error message, basically. Okay, so let's run that. Okay, there's an issue. Ambiguous column name. Basically, what that's saying is like, hey, customer ID is in both tables. What am I supposed to do here? I don't know what to do. because I don't know if this, it needs someone to tell it, hey, are you comparing I know obviously it should make sense. It's like if you have two customer IDs you're comparing, it's coming from one table and the other one's coming from another table, but it doesn't know that. You have to explain that to the compiler. So let me comment that out. And this is where I'm going to stop. I'm not going to go into too much detail with this, but just wanted to show you how you can make an alias for these tables. So run this. And then if you look here, customer name around the horn, you see how it's just repeating. This is what we call a Cartesian join. And if you see here, it went from, I think, what was it, 9 records to 196. And that's because we took this statement out. But again, that's a little beyond what we want to learn. Just for today, just understand you could do alias. And this is how I normally do it. Most people don't like this, but this is just how I do it. I'll do A and then B. And then you'll come here, A dot. And because I know this table, I know these are the two that have, these are the two that appear in both tables. So that's why. And then I can run this, and you see it's 2 records. Around the horn, around the horn. And again, we specify customer name. So that's why we got that. And again, if you notice here, just take a little time to explain this here to make sure we're clear on this. If you notice here, order ID, I didn't put an alias. I didn't put the B dot order ID. The reason why I do that, because again, this order ID only appears in this table. If it appeared in both tables, then I would have to do it. Like, for example, watch this. You'll see ID. Now, when I run this, it's like, okay, again, we're back to what we had the issue with before. I don't know where this column is coming from. Is this column A? Is this not column? Is this table A or is this table B? Or is this the customer's table or the orders table? Because again, both of them have that column name in there. So let's take it from the orders table. Run it. It's fine. It likes that because you're telling the compiler exactly where it's coming from. And if you want, you can go through and put this for everything. So A here, and then this would be B. And now let's say you make a mistake and you just put down A for this right here. Watch this. It's going to be like, no, that's not true. I could not prepare a statement, no such column A order ID. And that's because the alias is wrong. So that's another good thing. It'll to let you know, like, hey, no. If you see that error, it's like, okay, did I use the wrong alias for that column? Which we did. So run this again and everything works. Okay. Sorry about that. So that, again, you can do just space and then whatever you want to use the alias, or you can use the as statement, whichever one you prefer. I just so I can have less code and less typing, I just put the B or the C or whatever I'm using to alias that table, and both of them will work. See, I just ran it and it was perfectly fine. So again here, this was kind of what we were talking about here. This is basically without an alias. What we did here was we just used the physical name of the table and we just showed that. So let's jump down here and do some exercise. So start the exercise. So when displaying the customer table, make an alias of the postal code column. The column should be called P&O. So instead of postal code, we want P&O. And you just put it right next to it again. Since there's no space, we're fine. We don't even have to use a bracket. Submit answer, not correct. Whoa. Why are we not correct? Show answer. Okay. My mistake. We have to use the as. There we go. Next. All right. So, okay. For here, I don't know if it's going to hit me hard if I don't use it. Okay. When displaying customers table, refer to the table as consumer. Let's see if it doesn't like this. Okay, so you see here, you could do this. I showed you guys that you guys can do this, but it wants the as. So we'll give it the as. Oops, go back here. What did I miss here? The S. Typo on my part, guys, but let's see if it'll take it this way. Nope, it won't take it this way. So let's put the as. Okay, so again, it wanted the as. Now I want to close this here. I don't think I showed this. Well, we did discuss this, but this will be the last thing I show, and then we'll be done. So I think the products table might be good for this demonstration I want to do. I want to show another time where you might want to use the alias. Okay, so let's say, for instance, here. I'm just saying, looking at here. Let's say, for instance, they're like, hey, we want to create a new name for the product. So we want everything, but we're going to, for whatever reason, and sometimes this happens, they just almost kind of like create a new column in the table. I'm going to show you a way to do that. And basically, we want to concatenate two columns to make it to differentiate the product. So let's say, for instance, they want to be like, hey, we want the product name and the units together. So P, and then go P dot, run this to make sure it works. Okay, it works. Now watch this. So I'm going to do P dot product name, and then I want to concatenate hopefully I'm concatenating correctly. If not, we'll fix it. P dot units. Okay. Plus P dot units. Didn't like that. Okay, let's go back here. I'm going to cheat a little bit. Where is my concatenation? Ooh, okay. Let me run that again. I don't know if it's chopping it off or something. As new product name. All right, so that's what I wanted to do. So you say here, new product name, but my issues here, it's not taking this and concatenate the way I want it to. And we'll fix that. Let me play around with this a little bit. Okay, something's not working. Did I do a typo? We'll figure this out. Okay. Let me come back here, see. Oops. Address plus this. Let me come back here. Plus. This is really strange because this should be working. I wonder if this is another error that we just found. Because if we look here, let me bring this down here. This works, this concatenation. Unless I type something incorrectly. So you see here how it has testing. I must type something correctly. Let's go back here. No, I don't see anything wrong that I did. Doesn't mean I did do anything wrong. plus. Very strange. Let me see if for whatever reason it's not liking this time. So what I will do products p dot asterisk to show everything. Okay, so we see here everything worked here. And then let me bring this in. Let's see how this works out. New value given for one or more required parameters. Yeah, no value given for one or more requirements. For whatever reason, it's not liking this. Let's come back here and run this again. Let's see if we can fix this here and find out what's going on. All right, let's see if this works. Nope, it's not working. All right, let me just go back here. Try this again. Excuse me. I guess we'll just use this one as an example. That's what I was trying to show here, and this, I guess this illustrated, I don't know what's going on with that table. But basically what I'm trying to illustrate is here how you can concatenate certain columns to create one new column. And then here, this is what I want to show. Let me, this here, space, come down. Okay, so you see, this is how I'm trying to show it. So you see like here, I don't know why it's doing that. Okay. So this is what I'm trying to show here, like how you see we have address here, but we want to change it. And let's say, for instance, we want to use this for whatever reason for the output you're putting in. So we'll just do new address, and it will still have the same old address here, but we see here it's a part of that. And then again, we gave it an alias. So sorry we went around a lot, but I think you guys understand it. If you have any comments or anything, I'll work on that issue that we're having. If there is a solution, I'll make another video to post exactly what I did to solve that issue. So hopefully you had a good